What is your understanding of these new tariffs? Just how much exactly will it reach that 12.5? What industries could it impact?
So it'll impact on non-food related exports primarily, and non-mining metals that are currently exported and subject to other tariffs. But it will, at the moment, it's designed to be stacked on top of any other additional tariffs that exist. So it's not just 12.5%. It'll go on top of the 122 tariffs, which are the 10% blanket, which do expire at the end of July, but could be extended. And it will go on top of any other duties that might exist. So it is quite a big jump.
Yeah, so it could have quite a significant impact in those industries that you mentioned, plus the ones that already have the blanket 10%. When we look at motivations, what do you think that they might be? We heard the US Trade Representative Greer saying the US would no longer tolerate countries that fail to address forced labour in their supply chains. Is there any basis for those claims?
So the short answer is yes, there is some basis that there is forced labour that exists in global supply chains, but the way they've undertaken this investigation is a predetermined outcome. And this investigation is entirely designed to be able to replace last year's tariffs and is not really based on any reality. An example would be Australia's been applied a 12.5% tariff because we haven't done enough. Bangladesh has been applied a 10% tariff. And the main reason for the forced labour is from trade coming from China and particularly from areas like Xinjiang in the far west of China. And Bangladesh, for example, import around about 2/3 of their textiles from China and then export clothing to Australia. So they've only been applied a 10% tariff. We've been applied a 12.5% tariff because of that throughput, potentially including forced labour. But how do we know?
Yeah. So would you say, though, from Australia's perspective, though, they are unwarranted claims?
Yes, absolutely. This is nothing to do with Australia's forced labour legislation. There are some criticisms of Australia's modern slavery legislation and the lack of enforcement mechanisms. However, we are certainly one of the more assertive countries around the world in having legislation that addresses this very issue.
I was interested at the point that the former ambassador of Australia to the United States, Joe Hockey, made this morning. He was making the point that the US is also running out of money. How much might that be playing into the US motivations?
So Mr. Trump has long suggested that you can replace income tax by tariff revenue. Last year, with all the revenue they received from tariffs, from the Liberation Day tariffs, US recovered around just under $200 billion in tariff revenue, all of which they have to return, or half of which they have to return, I might add. But the cut in income taxes last year on the Big Beautiful Bill cut $500 billion out of tax revenue from the US. So the tariffs are nowhere near going to cover the deficit that they have, which at the moment is running at around 6% of GDP. And comparing that to Australia, we are at around about 1.7% of GDP. So the US is running very large deficits. Tariffs are not going to be the solution to that.
Okay. With respect to the Australia-US relationship, the Prime Minister had a fairly strong response to this morning.
There is an ideological disagreement where the United States administration has broken with what was a decades-long understanding that tariffs are not positive for the country that is imposing them.
What impact do you see, Nathan, this having on the US-Australia relationship?
It's going to make it more difficult for Australian companies to trade with the US in certain sectors, but it's mostly going to impact significantly on US consumers. It's going to increase inflation in the US. It's going to make it more difficult for manufacturers in the US to be able to get input ingredients and components to manufacture other products. And it's going to have a bigger impact on the US, particularly on growth and economic development, than it will do on Australia. Mm-hmm. The issue more so is what it affects our trading partners and the uncertainty it provides the business, which is bad.
Yeah. So what do you think the government can be doing with respect to those issues that you make there?
there's not a lot we can do in terms of the relationship with the US. They are making unilateral decisions which are out of our control. We could, retaliate and charge them tariffs, but that will affect our consumers and it'll increase our inflation. And so it's a worthwhile approach to take. At the end of the day, we're a bit stuck. I don't know that the government can do much. They haven't really done anything wrong in this regard. This is a unilateral decision of the US that is ungrounded in any real investigation or real investigative finding.
Just finally, Nathan, I mean, it feels like we've been here before because we have, and we're very aware of the taco trade, the Trump always chickens out acronym. How likely do you think that this will go ahead?
This will go ahead, and then there will be some disputes and legal action taken to have them struck down, just as there have been with the Section 122 tariffs that are currently in action and have been found to be illegal. This will happen again, and in the meantime, the tariff will be imposed. So we're talking probably another 12 months with this tariff uncertainty, and then likely there'll be another tariff imposed somewhere else using a different legislation instrument.
Nathan Howard-Gray, Senior Research Fellow from the Institute for International Trade at Adelaide University. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.